Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Foxcast. With one day to go before Leicester's first game of the season, would you believe it? I can't believe it's finally here. But yeah, here we are. And I just wanted to, just do a quick update on the kind of latest news and a look ahead of the first game tomorrow. Obviously, I've taken a bit of an unwanted break these last couple of weeks from doing any Leicester pods, but now that the season's here, I'm going to be doing these on the regular. So I think previews before the weekend and kind of a look back, maybe on a Sunday or a Monday, looking at the result and kind of how the game went. So yeah, the biggest bit of news, I suppose, since I last did one, is that Vestegaard's about to sign. Obviously, we all know what happened to Fofana. It was a disgusting challenge, a horrible injury, especially in pre-season, and it's such a shame for him because he had such a great breakthrough season last season. By all accounts, he was going to be the main man this year, and it was a really good chance for him to kick on even further. So to see that happen to him and to know that he's probably going to be out until at least kind of February, March, and that's being optimistic, I think. So it is a real shame, and but the one thing that it did definitely do is force us to go out and get a centre back. Personally, I think we probably needed one extra anyway. Although there is a lot to be said for Daniel Almaty. Rodgers went for him in the Charity Shield game, and he was solid at the back with Suyuncu, and I think that we underestimate him a little bit just because he's been such a kind of bit part player for so long that like I think a lot of other Leicester fans thought the best move would be to move Ndidi back into centre back and bring Samari in now that we have that option in centre midfield. But I think losing Ndidi in that holding position would just be too much, especially, and he proved that against Man City. I know it was only a Charity Shield game, it's like a glorified friendly, but every time he goes out on the pitch, he gets at least an 8 for me. He's so consistent and so important in that central midfield. So I think Almaty as a backup solution is always there. I don't think Benkovic is the one. I don't think Rodgers trusts him. But now that we're bringing in Vestegaard, that really plugs that gap for me. And even though there are some doubts around maybe his pace, and he's been in the Southampton team that have conceded a lot of goals, he showed in the Euros that he is a quality centre back. And also, I was thinking he might offer us a threat in attacking set pieces because he's a big guy, which is something that we've lacked, and defending set pieces too. So hopefully he can kind of help us in that regard. But yeah, 15 million is the reported price. He only had a year left on his contract, so I think Southampton have got a pretty good deal there. But then again, considering how desperate we are for someone in that position, I think to bring someone in at that price who's Premier League experienced, 29, so still got some good years left in him, especially at centre back. I think it's a really positive move, and I don't think we'll see him tomorrow for the Wolves game. It's probably a bit too tight. Maybe he'll make the bench, but he won't start. So it looks like we'll go with Almaty and Suyuncu again, and I'm a lot more confident now, having seen them last weekend. I'm a lot more confident to go with those two at the back, at least for the time being. Johnny Evans, when he comes back, it'll be interesting to see who kind of drops out of him, Vestegaard and Suyuncu. Obviously, we can play the three at the back, which I know Rodgers likes to do occasionally. But yeah, I suspect it'll be Vestegaard or Suyuncu who kind of drop out if we're playing kind of 4-4 at the back. But yeah, Johnny Evans looks like he's going to be out until after the international break. So at least for the first 3 games, I think we'll probably go with Almaty and Suyuncu, and then Vestegaard will come in next week when he's had a bit more time to kind of bed into the squad. So yeah, that's the kind of big transfer news. I know that Rodgers hinted in his conference the other day that it's possible that we're still out for a winger, probably a left-footed right winger. I do still think that is somewhere where we can strengthen. In the Charity Shield, obviously, and also the Villarreal game, Rodgers went with very similar starting lineups, and in both games we started Perez on the right, and he did okay. But we can do better. I do think we can do better. And Albrighton is again is always there and a good squad option. But I just think if we could bring in someone of real quality to enhance that position, it will just make us more of a threat. Especially when going with the formation that I think we're going to go with. So looking at the Wolves game, I think that we'll start with 4-2-3-1, like we have in the last two games, which means that and the reason why I think he's doing that is because Barnes is back now, and he is one of our biggest attacking threats. So having Barnes in the team means that we kind of need to play with the wingers, because he's not really he's not really a wing back. He's not really an attacking midfielder. He feels at home on the left wing. So I think that Rodgers is going with that to begin with. So we'll have, like I said, Amati and Suyuncu at the back. I think Bertrand is establishing himself as the first choice left back. So Thomas will kind of be on the bench. I don't think he'll be starting. And also with Bertrand, it looks like he's looked really solid, but also he's taken a few set pieces from the left, which I think is handy for us, because again, deliveries on set pieces is something that we've kind of been missing. So yeah, Bertrand on the left, Suyuncu and Amati, and then on the right we'll have Ricardo. Obviously, Castagna and Ricardo will be battling it out for that place, but for the time being, Castagna's only just had this mask fitted. Obviously, he had a really bad facial injury at the Euros. So I think it's too soon. He hasn't played in any of the friendlies. So we'll be starting with Ricardo tomorrow. Then in centre midfield, we'll have Ndidi and Tielemans as usual. Obviously, they work so well together. Not much to be said with that. They're so established in that position. And although Samare is now there to bring some competition, I think we'll mainly be seeing him off the bench, at least for the first kind of for the first month or two of the season. And then we'll go with Barnes on the left wing, with Vardy up front on his own, and either Perez or Brighton on the right, probably Perez. I do think that we played well in the first half against Man City, don't get me wrong, but I do think that sometimes we're better off with two up front, whether that's Iheanacho with Vardy, or now obviously we've got the option of Daka. But I think that Rodgers likes the idea of having Kelechi and Daka as options off the bench. If we're struggling to break a team down, but it's still 0-0, and you bring those two on and switch the formation to a 3-5-2, all of a sudden you've got more attacking threat on the pitch, and you've got raw pace with Daka, who can take advantage of a tired defence. So yeah, and Maddison again will be starting. So we'll start with that 4-2-3-1, and I think that's how we'll play for the first kind of 60-70 minutes of the game. And then I imagine we'll bring on Daka for Vardy, Kelechi for one of the wingers, and switch the formation so that we've got two up front. Obviously, that's worked really well against both Villarreal and Man City. Whether or not he'll do it only depending on the circumstances of the game. If we're only winning 1-0, where we feel the need to bring them both on, maybe he'll just bring one of the strikers on. I do think it's going to be hard to leave out Kelechi, considering how good he was last season, and how strong he's looked in pre-season as well. It's a big call. We've got a lot of competition up front now. And, I don't think Vardy's got a guaranteed spot every week, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of this first game, this is how I think it's going to look. In terms of Wolves, obviously they're a bit of an unknown. They've got this new manager, Bruno Lage, from a new Portuguese manager who doesn't have lots of experience to go off. I know he managed Benfica last season, but yeah, the word is that he plays kind of quite an attacking style, and obviously with Wolves under Nuno Santo, they've always been quite pragmatic and quite defensive. So yeah, there's a chance that they'll be kind of a more expansive team. Whether that's going to take a few weeks for them to get used to, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, they've got Jimenez back after that terrible head injury. which I think is going to be big for them, especially if he is really kind of 100%, especially in terms of like heading the ball and stuff like that. Because last season, that's when they really kind of fell apart. Obviously, they've got Fabio Silva as a backup, but he's still very inexperienced to be a centre forward in the Premier League, and that was proven time and again last season. In terms of and new signings wise, I think the only one who might actually start, or the only ones, is a new keeper, because obviously they sold Rui Patricio to Wolves, I believe. To Wolves, to Roma. So now they've got Jose Sá, believe it or not, another Portuguese goalkeeper, 28 years old, who they've brought in from Braga. So a bit of an unknown, but Rui Patricio was quite a big player for them. So I wonder whether that's a bit of a downgrade. We'll have to see on that one. And then the other signing is Trincao. Is it Francesco Trincao from Barcelona, who, funny enough, Leicester have been linked with in the past, especially last season. We were linked with him quite heavily. Very talented player, like young Portuguese winger. Obviously, Barcelona saw something in him, so that gives you a general idea of kind of what he's, how well he's thought of, how highly he's thought of. And yeah, he's on loan from Barca this season, so I think there's a good chance that he'll start, and yeah, could be a bit of a threat, one to watch out for. Wolves, I think we've played them twice on an opening game of the season since we got promoted again, because I think I went to both games. Once I think we beat them 2-0. It was James Maddison scored on his debut at home at the King Power, and then more recently we drew to them 0-0. I went to that as well, and yeah, it was a bit of a dire game. That would have been the season before last when crowds were back. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, even though, as I said, they're going to play a more attacking style, I wouldn't be surprised if it's another tight game, and hopefully we can sort of edge it. I think we played really well, like I said, in the last couple of friendlies, and hopefully we can carry that into the season. I'm really happy that it's at home. Like, the fans are back. We know the atmosphere at the King Power and how much of a difference they can make to the team, and that was really kind of lacking, I think, at points in our home games last season, and especially with the first game back with a full stadium, off the back of this news about the stadium development, which again is an amazing investment from the owners. They've just invested in this unbelievable training ground, and now we've got plans for a 40,000 seater stadium with some amazing development around it as well. So I think just everything at Leicester this summer has been so positive, other than the Fofana injury, which I obviously touched on. I think we go into the season with massive amounts of excitement of what's to come. Our signings look fantastic. We're off the back of 2 5th place finishes. The fans are back. It's just a really exciting time to be a Leicester fan, and hopefully we can start the season, with that in mind, like taking all of this positive energy and transforming it into performances on the pitch. And then just lastly, just touch on like kind of season targets. Obviously it's a bit early to say, but I think I would love to see us make a proper go of the Europa League this year. I don't think everybody quite has got to grips with the new format of the Europa League. Like, it's now, obviously it's been whittled down now to 32 teams, and it used to be, I think it was 48, and there used to be the knockout round would start at the round of 32, whereas now if you come second in your group, you're in the round of 16, and if you win your group, you go straight into the quarters. The round of 16 now in the Europa League is going to be played between the second place people in the group and the third place people in the Champions League, the first place teams in the Champions League who drop out. So you get an opportunity to completely skip that first knockout round and go straight into the quarterfinals. What it does mean is that the group stages, I imagine, will be a lot stronger. Obviously, last year we had Braga, the exact teams skipped me because they weren't anything big. It was nothing really particularly exciting. And sure enough, we qualified without any real problems. But then when we got to the round of 32, we went out straight away. But now we've got a stronger squad. We've got the chance of going straight into the quarterfinals if we win our group. And I already know that it's something that the team and that Rodgers is looking at a lot more seriously this year. So fingers crossed we can get to kind of at least the semis. Exactly like Ben says there in the comments. Yeah, you win your group, you're 2 wins away from the final. It's that's how close it is now. Whereas the round of 32, in previous years, the Europa League's been a proper slog. So yeah, it's a real incentive to do well in the group. I think, like I say, it'll be more competitive and more exciting because there's less teams in the Europa League now. So there's not so many of the kind of, a lot of the kind of lower level teams will now be playing in the Conference League with Spurs, funnily enough. So yeah, it's a real good opportunity. And yeah, hopefully, like you say, even if you just get through that if you win your group, win the quarterfinals, you're in the semis. And for me, that's already a success really in that competition because, anything can sort of happen at that point. The League Cup is, again, I mean, you're never going to take it too seriously. It's a good opportunity to use the squad. But at the same time, how many times have we been knocked out by Man City on penalties in the last few years in the quarterfinals? And I think, it's the only domestic trophy now that we haven't won in the last kind of 5 years or, in the last decade. So obviously we won it in 2000 last. So it would be nice to kind of complete the collection with this kind of mini era that we're having with this really strong team. And it would also be nice to see someone else win it except for Man City because it's getting pretty boring now. The FA Cup, we've kind of ticked that off. Obviously, the League Cup, I'd like to go far. I'd like to win it and add the trophy. But if we go out, we go out. It's never going to be a big deal. The FA Cup, obviously, we're going it as holders now. We've kind of scratched that itch, I think. So, whereas last year, when it was a choice between, not a choice, but if I had to choose between top 4 or FA Cup, I think me, like a lot of other Leicester fans, would have chosen the FA Cup. And, it's not because, partly because we have unfinished business in the Europa League. I don't think we're quite ready to be a Champions League team yet. But it was mainly the fact that we never won the FA Cup in our history. And now we've done that. I don't think it's going to take priority over the Europa League and over the Premier League this year in terms of trying to break into that top 4. But still, with the squad that we have, the strength that we have, I'd still like to see us go as far as the quarterfinals at least. The Premier League, it's a tough one because we spent so long in the top 4 the last 2 years. We've only dropped out of the top 4 the last couple of weeks of the season, the last 2 seasons. So it's really we're so close, and it would be amazing to finally get there. But whilst we have strengthened, you have to look at those top 4 teams in the Premier League and who they've brought in. United bringing in Sancho, Man City bringing in Grealish and looking at Kane, Chelsea bringing in Lukaku and already had an unbelievably strong squad that won the Champions League. Liverpool are probably the only ones that I feel like we might have caught up on a little bit, but obviously they've got Van Dijk back and Konate is a big signing for them as well. But Robertson being out for the start of the season means they're bringing in Tsimikas. And I think the thing is with Liverpool is when they do have injuries to big players, they don't have the same strength and depth as like a City or a Chelsea to bring people in and fill those holes. So yeah, I think if out of those 4 teams, I think Liverpool are probably our best chance of maybe surpassing this year, but it's going to be a big ask. And I think, it's never going to be easy to break into the top 4. But as long as we're there and we're knocking on the door and, I still think that out of the teams outside of those 4, in terms of, that next tier, so Leicester, maybe Villa now with the players that they brought in, Arsenal, Tottenham, I still think that we are the best of the rest at the current moment in time. But I suspect Tottenham will still be there. Villa are progressing, so it's getting harder and harder. But as long as if we can stand out again for another season as the best of the rest, sort of the team that are really knocking on the door of those top 4 teams, I think that that's the best that we can hope for. And if that leads to a top 4 place, then amazing. I think we can actually target points wise because we missed out because we haven't reached that 70-point mark, and that's really where you want to be to give yourself the best possible chance. I think we finished on 66, we were maybe like 4 points off. So if we can just aim for 70 points, never mind what the rest of the league are doing, and see where that takes us, it'll be an improvement on last season. And in past years, it's often been enough to get you into that top 4. So yeah, that's it really. Like, I'm just buzzing for the first game now. I can't wait to see all the fans back at the King Power. I can't wait to get to a game. It's been so long since I've been there. Unfortunately, it's not going to be tomorrow, but it will be very soon. And yeah, up the Foxes. Let's go. Hopefully we can start with a win. But yeah, I'll be back next week to kind of review the game and see where we're at. If I'm gonna make a prediction, I'm going to be positive and say that we're going to beat Wolves. I don't know if we'll be able to keep a clean sheet with the defence as they are. So I'll go with a 2-1 Leicester win. Come on, boys.